All right, all right. Let's do some more graphing with sine and cosine. But now we're going to add two new aspects to it. It's the B and the C. So in the last video, we looked at amplitude, how high above and below it goes from that node line or your starting line. And vertical shifting, how far we shift up the entire graph, not just the top and bottom. So period is represented by B. Now B does not represent the exact period, it's how you get it. So the period of sine and cosine is always going to be 2 pi divided by that B value. But for the sake of graphing, we're just going to change the tick marks along the graph. We're not going to squish it or anything like that. I would have to give you specially scaled graph paper for that. For C, that is the lateral shift, also known as the horizontal shift, and you have to remember it's the opposite way. Many times throughout the course of this class we've said opposite of the inside. Well, that's going to pretty much be the same for this as well. So if you have an x plus c, that's going to be shifting to the left. If it's x minus c, you're going to shift to the right. Okay, so those are the two new changes. Special note, if b is inside the parentheses, you need to factor it out. So we're going to do a couple easy examples, and then we're just going to tie everything together. So the amplitude, there's nothing in front, so the amplitude is 1. The period, that's the new part. So our period is 2 pi divided by our b value of 4, which means the period is pi over 2. Now, it said just change the tick mark, so I'm not going to make you scale these. Pi over 2 goes to the 4th tick mark, and negative pi over 2 is the 4th tick mark to the left. Okay, so those are your, or pi over 2 is your period. Now, a little trick to scaling the rest of them. A little side note, the interval of your tick marks is the period divided by 4. So pi over 2 divided by 4 is pi over 8. That's your interval. So this would be 1 pi over 8. 2 pi over 8, which is pi over 4, 3 pi over 8, which can't reduce, and then as you see, you have your 4 pi over 8, which reduces to pi over 2, and you're good to go. So that's how you can find your interval for scaling, because you must label your tick marks. So then you go the opposite direction, and now you're good to go with the labeling. Your horizontal shift, there isn't any, and there's no vertical shift, okay? So the purpose of this graph was just to get you to see the period. How do we change the period? And that's it. You are ready to graph. So the only thing you have to do for period is change the tick marks. Since this is sine, we know it starts at the origin, and we know that it has an amplitude of 1, so here's your top line. It has a bottom line at -1. And it's a positive sign, so it goes up first. So you just go up to the top, back to the node, to the bottom, to the node. Go backwards, this goes to the bottom, node, top, node. Swoop it, and you're good to go. That's it. So the only difference is if you have a B, just change your tick marks. That's it. Here's an example that only deals with the horizontal shift. So again, this has an amplitude of 1. It has a period. There's no b, so it's just 2 pi. So that means this is a -2 pi. This is 2 pi. You take your period, divide it by 4, and your interval is pi over 2. So we have pi over 2, and then we have pi, then we have 3 pi over 2, and then our 2 pi. Same in the other direction. Horizontal shift. This is pi over 2 to the left, opposite of what's inside. So since this says x plus pi over 2, we're going to shift it left pi over 2. And there's no vertical shift. So to finish scaling this out, what we're going to do is first you have your node line, which again, there is no vertical shift, so it's the x-axis. And then you have your top and bottom lines, if you enjoy drawing those to help you with your graph. So there's your top, there's your bottom, both an amplitude of 1 unit away from the node. You have your vertical shift, which is not there, and then you also have your horizontal shift. So now we're going to go pi over 2 to the left, and we're going to draw a vertical line. So now this became your new, shall we say, starting line. Since this is a positive cosine, we just start at the top of that horizontal shifted line. And then you just follow your pattern and you swoop away. So after you get your dots plotted out, we just do a little swoop, and that is the only thing a horizontal shift does. Okay, so in the next couple examples, we're going to tie a few things together. So in this next example, we are going to tie just the b and the c value together. So remember the special note. When you have a b inside the parentheses, you want to factor it out. So that would be sine of 1/2. Now you're factoring out a 1/2, which means you're dividing a 1/2. So that's going to become 2 pi. That doesn't become a 1/2 pi. You're dividing by 1/2, which is multiplying by 2. So that's what your new equation is supposed to look like. So now our amplitude, there's nothing in front, so it's still 1. The period is 2 pi divided by 1/2, which means your period is 4 pi. If you would like to take it one step further, you divide that by 4, and your interval is 1 pi. So now you know your fourth tick mark has to be your period, so that would be 4 pi. And this would be your negative 4 pi. And then you just increase by 1 pi each time. And now we're going to go to our horizontal shift, which after we factored out the 1/2, it's 2 pi to the right, and there's no vertical shift. So we have our node line, which is the x-axis. We have our top line at 1 above, our bottom line at 1 below, and our starting line is 2 pi to the right. Since this is a positive sine wave, this is going to start at the origin, or shall we say the node line, and we're going to go up as we go to the right and just follow our pattern. And then of course, once you're done with the pattern, do your little swoops and we are good to go. So we have one more example, and this example has an A, B, C, and a D. Now it also looks like you're going to have to factor that B out first. So before you do anything, make sure you have y is equal to -3 cosine of 2 x minus pi over 2 minus 1. You need to state an amplitude, a period, a horizontal shift, and a vertical shift. Also, for your note, you might want to state the interval as well. And let's see if you can handle that. If you truly understand everything it is about sine and cosine graphing, this will take you a couple of minutes. I would like you to pause the video and attempt this on your own, and we'll see if you get it right. So let's watch the play-by-play. The amplitude is 3. It's not -3. The negative just tells you that it's flipped upside down. So your amplitude is 3. Your period is 2 pi divided by your b value of 2. So your period is pi. Side note, divide that by 4, and your interval is pi over 4. And then your horizontal shift. Our horizontal shift is going to be pi over 2 to the right, because it's minus pi over 2. And the last thing is our vertical shift. Our vertical shift is 1 down. Okay, you have to state a direction for your shifts. So, if you graphed it correctly, the first thing you probably did was graph your node line, or your starting line, which is 1 down. And now you have to do an amplitude of 3 above and 3 below. So we would go 3 above the node line, which puts us at 2. And 3 below the node line, which puts us at a -4. And then you have your horizontal shift. Your horizontal shift is pi over 2 to the right. So now we have to go back and we have to scale our axes. So using the interval, we're going by pi over 4s. So this is pi over 4. This is 2 pi over 4, also known as pi over 2. This is 3 pi over 4. And this is 4 pi over 4, which is pi, which is our period. The fourth tick mark is supposed to be. Same thing in the opposite direction, except for everything is negative. So the last thing you have to do is just start swooping. So where do you swoop? Well, first, you have to do your pi over 2 to the right. And since this is a negative cosine, you are going to start at the bottom. And now you're ready to rock. You just go all the way up to your node line, all the way up to the top. And then you're going to go backwards. So you go up to the node line, all the way to the top. Back to your node line, all the way to the bottom. Back to the node line, all the way to the top. And when you get done, you just have one gigantic W because you are a winner if you got that correct. Good job. All right. That's it for graphing sine and cosine waves. This is Longo, and I'm out. See you. Bye.